it's Miranda. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hey, for the first time, subscribe, become a member of the Slashed Squad. Here I review products you won't feel guilty buying and do looks you can actually recreate at home. And I promise I don't always look like this. Today I don't have any makeup on yet because I'm going to be reviewing a foundation, and I feel like I'm a little behind on the hype, but better late than never. I'm still very eager to share my thoughts on the Dermacol foundation, aka World's Most Full Coverage Foundation, question mark, clickbait title, emoji in the thumbnail. Watch this video be exactly like that. So a lot of people are talking about this foundation. Again, it's called Dermacol. It is made in Prague, the Czech Republic, and a lot of people are saying it is the most full coverage foundation ever. Now, of course, having not tested every foundation in the world, I can't really speak to that, but I will say that this little foundation packs a punch. So today I'm going to share my thoughts. I've been using it for about a week and a half now, and I'm going to also demo it live on camera so you can see the coverage as it happens. So let's start with a little background information. So again, this is a foreign product to me, so it is from the Czech Republic, and although this tube looks really small compared to other foundations you would buy either at the drugstore or even high-end, it almost looks more like a concealer tube. It is labeled that it has 30 grams of product inside, which is just over 1 ounce, and that is actually the average amount that you get in your everyday foundation. But the reason why it looks so small is because this product is heavy, it's thicker, and because of that you need hardly any to cover your face. In fact, in the directions it says please do not apply too much. I did get my tube from Amazon for about $16. I'll leave the link below. It seemed like Amazon was the easiest place to get it, being in the States. It had most of the shades, and I am a Prime member, so I did get that 2-day shipping on it. And the shade that I got is 218, which is described as a yellow beige, and I thought that would be probably the closest match. You know, not being able to really see it in person, it can always be up in the air. Luckily it matched. So again, this is a full coverage foundation, and I love me some full coverage, especially because I do deal with acne. The more coverage, the better. It is also supposed to be waterproof, which I'll talk about a little later in the video. So this stuff, like I said, is really thick, and I'll show you the texture in just a second, but you really don't need a lot. It's so easy to use too much, which I definitely did on my first application. I used way too much on my face, and I still had some on the back of my hand. So for me personally, I find it easier to apply with my Eevee blender, which is a type of silicone sponge. And as a side note, I was thinking about reviewing this next week on my channel. If you're interested, let me know in the comments because there's been a lot of hype around this little thing. But anyway, using a silicone sponge kind of forces me to use less, which is very pivotal for this product. And here's the tube. It's in almost like, I want to say one of those tin feeling tubes. It's very thick and sturdy, so I like to press towards the bottom so that way I'm pushing all the product up, just because you can see it like dents a little bit easy, and I feel like that'll help me later on to use all the product. So here we go, it's dispensing, and even this amount is too much. I'm already going to predict that that's way more than I need. Okay, so I zoomed in a little bit. Like I said, I'm going to use my Eevee blender to blend the Dermacol all over my face, and I wanted you to be able to see kind of what we're working with here. I definitely have some hyperpigmentation. This is a healing acne that I picked out. Got an active pimple here, and just mostly discoloration from acne. Okay, so here goes nothing. Again, using my Eevee blender, just going to tap in. So usually what I do is I'll pick up as much as I can on my silicone sponge and then tap it around my face, and that way I'm distributing the product ahead of time so I'm not using too much in one area. And like I said, I think I may have squirted even a little bit too much, but now I'm just going to go ahead and blend. And you can definitely use a regular brush for this. See, I have way too much right here. I'm going to have to fix that. You can use a regular brush with this. You can use a regular sponge as well. I just find the silicone, well, first of all, I'm loving this little blender because it's just so easy to clean, but it's also good for kind of controlling how much product you actually use. Okay, so I blended out the foundation fully, and then I just added brows, my mascara, and some lipstick just so I can get a little bit more color back on my face, but I have no other face makeup on, and you can see that all of my hyperpigmentation completely covered. I don't see any zits. Yeah, this is a really, truly full coverage foundation. So here are a few things that I want to point out about this foundation first while we are still zoomed in. you can see that I have a pretty natural looking finish. It's not dewy, but it's definitely not matte. It's somewhere in between where you get this nice natural radiance. I think this looks really nice. It's very close to a natural skin finish because you are getting that luminosity where your skin would naturally show it. So you got it naturally right here on the cheekbones and just the high points of the face. Now, I will say that after testing this for about a week and a half, that does turn a little bit shiny if you are in a warmer climate or you're just moving around throughout the day, or if you have combo to oily skin, you will probably experience an oily look. I did prep my face today with an oil control primer, and I feel like that is the best way to use this foundation. Second thing I want to point out is because this is so thick, again, I can't emphasize it enough, this texture is unlike any other foundations that I have used, maybe close to some mousse foundations, but even still, just a little bit thicker. It will settle into lines if you're not careful about blending or if you just apply too much. So like right under my eye, I do have some lines. So usually I'll just have to go back in there and blend out with my finger. Otherwise, they'll show up as the foundation kind of creeps in there, as well as on the lid. Now, I know putting foundation on your lid is maybe not the best idea, just for those who are like paranoid about putting heavier face products around the eyes, but because this is so full coverage, I mean, it's gonna be really hard for you to find like a perfect color match, and even though I said this is like a really, really good match for me, it's still like a scent different from my skin. So if I leave the eye area uncovered, it's too obvious of a difference because it is so full coverage. So I do tend to tap it lightly around my eyes with the blender, but I will have to go in and kind of get it out of my eye crease. So I'm really, really in love with how this looks first applied. I think that it looks so smooth, despite the fact that, you know, it's really hard to cover texture with foundations. I feel like this is almost as close as you can get because I do have texture issues around here because I have that large kind of cystic acne that, you know, sometimes creates shadows. And then as well as, you know, just around my cheeks, I do have some dips and highs with acne situations, but I feel like it really flattens everything out. So I wanted to show you how other face products apply on top of it as well. So I am going to do a contour, blush, and highlight just so you can see how things blend on top. So I'm just going to be using the Rimmel Kate Sculpting Kit, and we'll start out with contour. Compared to other foundations that I've used, this really takes on layers of face makeup as far as like powders on top really well. It blends out easily, and despite it having, you know, a little bit of, I don't want to say dewy, but maybe demi-matte finish or texture, even without powdering first, powders are blending nicely on top of it and they're not applying patchy. And I'm just going to take the blush from the same palette and dust that onto my cheeks. And then, even though I feel like I really have just a natural glow about me with this finish, I'm going to add a little bit of the highlight from the palette. Just a little bit. Okay, now I feel like I have a little bit more dimension back in my face. I'm starting to feel like this is a look that I would wear out. I went really light on the eyes, pretty natural look, but I am kind of showcasing my skin and how amazing it looks under this foundation. Okay, so I want to talk about last weekend. I went to a Dodgers versus Cubs game. Yes, I'm from LA, but I am a Cubs fan. So take a mental picture. This is how the foundation looks freshly applied. And cut to a couple hours into the game. It was pretty hot. I think it was about 3 p.m. at this point and maybe 85 degrees. I was wearing a hat to keep my face out of the sun, but I was also feeling kind of sweaty. However, my foundation did not show that off. If I have foundation on the back of my hand, like after I'm applying it and I go to the sink to wash it off, I will say that it takes some elbow grease to get it off. And even then I will have to apply soap to actually get it to start breaking down. So I guess in respect to outside elements, it is waterproof. However, with sweat, I'm not quite sure I'm confident enough to say it's sweat-proof. So like I said, with the baseball game, I was out. I wasn't necessarily in the sun, but it was hot out. And I felt that as the day went on, I was kind of checking in on my makeup. I was starting to look pretty shiny. And I do have combo skin, so I feel like combo skin is like the threshold of how much oil is tolerated with this foundation before just really looking like a grease ball. Now, of course, there's also the phone test. Now, we've all been there. We're talking on the phone. You know, we do a little bit bit of this, and doing our nails, whatever, and then you're ending up with that. And I'll tell you now, I'm in Las Vegas currently. It's kind of hot. We have the air running, but right now it's off. And this could also be human error in terms of just applying too much. That's definitely possible. But I feel like I've been getting a pretty good idea of how much product I need. And on that particular day and days afterwards, you know, leaving LA, coming back to Vegas, I did feel like throughout the day that effect got increasingly worse. And usually when I read a waterproof label, I kind of equate that to sweatproof, but I don't think I would really consider this sweatproof. I think you do need to powder, maybe blot throughout the day, but if it was raining or maybe you're getting some light pool party action, you'll be fine. The other thing is that as I'm sweating right now, because the air is currently off, I felt a little bit sweaty right in this area, and I don't know if you can see that, but there's foundation absolutely coming off. I think one way to combat that is not necessarily applying it all over your face like I did. Usually I'm just lazy and I'll put whatever foundation I'm wearing just all over in a pretty even layer. But with this type of full coverage foundation, because it is so full coverage, you might want to employ the technique of putting it on very, very sparingly on areas where you don't necessarily need the coverage, and then just building up in layers where you do. I think that will solve a lot of these issues of getting too shiny in some spots, with the transfer, with sweating. When I do tend to put on too much, which I guarantee will happen to you one of the first times you use this, a good way to fix that, because especially as I'm using a silicone sponge, there's nowhere for the foundation to go except on my face or just kind of slip over the sponge. Grab a normal sponge, dampen it, don't put anything on it, and just pat it over the face, so that'll soak up a little bit of the excess. And in general would just make blending a lot easier. Now in terms of the wear, the coverage stays all day. So I'm gonna cut really quickly to footage of me after the game. Once I got home, it was probably like 10 p.m. at this point. I've been wearing the foundation for maybe about 12 hours, and this is what it looked like. All right, so this is the end of the day. It is about 11 p.m. I put this makeup on at, I want to say 9 a.m. and we still have pretty good coverage. We see some pimples coming through, but the thing is it's more texture. It's not the redness. We got a little bit of redness here, but that's mostly from my lipstick and eating. But other than that, the coverage, especially on my cheek where I have a lot of hyperpigmentation, I'm not seeing hardly any poke through. I'm so happy with this. I think one of the most surprising things, besides the fact that not much of my hyperpigmentation was showing through, was that my face makeup in terms of my contour and blush and highlight really looked even. Sometimes when I'm dealing with creamier foundations, I experience breakdown in the contour, blush, and highlight, but I was very surprised to see that they were going strong. Again, I only paid about $16, $17 on Amazon. The link will be below. And if you do have combo to oily skin, you're gonna need a lot of powder, I will warn you, but the coverage is so worth it. So I'm very curious to hear what you think about this foundation. If you've heard any other reviews of it, or if you've tried it yourself, leave it in the comments below. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. If you've done that, high five, hit the bell button so you know every time I post. I make new videos every Saturday and sometimes Wednesday, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!